So I've drawn out my outline. So I've chosen like for this, just because I don't want a white base. So I've drawn out my sheep. What I want to do first is kill off the paper colour where I don't need that colour. I'm going to do a dark blue in the background around his head, using it on its side again. So I'm holding it like that, using it on its flat side. And I'm just going to go around the top part of the sheep. I don't know if you can see that. Let me get the lens a bit closer. If you can have a look at that, the pastel has only taken on the raised parts of the paper. So the reason you use textured paper for pastel is because it's got lots of tiny little like pockets in it for collecting the chalk. I want to push it into all those pockets so that I'm getting rid of all that original colour. And then you can see I've got much more a flatter shading in there. And then I'm going to go around the front. I'm going to use, I think, kind of orangey brown colour for the front. This is all hay around here. So what I'm looking at is kind of like the dark parts in between the hay. So we've got a background to put the hay onto. So I'm going to go with a kind of browny, orangey browny colour, burnt sienna even. So there we go. We've got the backgrounds in. And you can see that the main colour of the paper has pretty much disappeared now. And I've just noticed I've gone over his leg here, but it doesn't really matter. I can put it back in. So next thing what I want to do is I want to get a main colour for the body of the sheep. Now, you might think, well, the sheep's white, so I'm going to do the sheep white. But you, when you're painting animals, you'll find that none of them are very rarely pure white. And with a sheep, I would save the white just for the highlights. So although I've got a yellow down here, you can see there's almost lots of pinks and blues in this sheep. If you're very restricted on a number of colours that you've got with your pastels, which I should imagine if you've just bought a set, then you probably haven't got an awful lot of them. If you want to colour in your sheep, what I would use, first of all, is pale colours. If you've got pale colours, use them. So I've got like a pink here. And I'm going to just do the sheep pink here and on its face. Now, if you've got a really strong pink, let's say you're using something like that. Okay, so you've got a really strong pink. What you can do is put the pink down and then put some white over the top to knock it back. And then you can blend it. So you can use the white to knock the colours back a bit. And I'm going to put some pale blue on this as well. So I've just knocked it back really. It's just stopping it looking quite so, well, it's kind of a cream colour, this paper that I'm using. It almost looks white on the screen. And then also with the pink, I'm going to go in its ears and do its ears pink. I think they want. So what I'm basically doing is I'm tending to use my pastels in a very similar way to which I use acrylics. So again, I will just fill in all the basic areas first, so you've got no white canvas left. So that's what I'm doing with the pastels, is I'm just blocking it all in. So I've lost that colour of the paper. I mean, you'll still get bits of it showing through, and I've left the bits where I'm going to have white in, because they're going to go even lighter than what this paper colour is. Once I've got down all the blocked in colours, this is when I then start to look at the darkest areas and the lightest areas. Now, again, I try not to use black too much because I think it's just too, it's too harsh. Black kind of drains all the colour or the light out of a picture. So I will usually use a dark brown, and then I might put a dark blue over the top. And this is very similar again to what I do with acrylics, where I use burnt umber and ultramarine together to make a really dark colour that is the darkest. I'll go to black. So let's look at the dark areas on this. First of all, definitely the eye. And we've got a line coming down from the eye. So you'll have something like that. Eye looks a lot smaller than you expect it to be. And then we've got the nose. There's a very fine line where its mouth is as well. So she does something like that. And then we've got some dark areas in its ear. There's like, and these need to be blended in. Then we don't want these to be too strong. And then just a little bit on this ear. And then we've got a very dark area here in the sheep where its belly is. Again, that needs to kind of blend outwards. And a very dark area this side of the sheep as well. If you've got a tendency to lean when you're drawing something like this, if you tend to lean on it with your hand, what I always do is I get a spare bit of paper. You get a bit of rough paper, it doesn't matter what it is, but you just put it there so you can lean your hand on it so that you're working like that. Rather than leaning on your actual drawing, lean on the paper, and then you won't smudge what you've done quite so much unless you drag the paper across it. But it's really easy to smudge pastels. So I try to work without leaning on the page. Try and keep your hand above it rather than leaning down. Okay, let's go for the highlights then. So using pure white. So you're looking around, if you look at the original picture, there's a real white halo along the top of its head. So we'll put that in. And then you just need to bring that down into the shaded part so you haven't got a hard line underneath it. And this actually goes around the ear as well. We've got quite a white area around this ear. And across the top of this ear, and along its back as well is quite white. And then this side of its nose. And then this side of its head here, you can see there's a shadow coming down. So you can either do it darker on this side or lighter on that side. It's not quite as white as the top of its head. And there you've got all the basics down. So now it's a case of starting to look at the detail. And what I I tend to do when I'm still drawing something like this. If I want it to be really close to the original, I will still leave the tracing that I've done attached to it so that I can flip backwards and forwards and see what needs working up. So I can see that eye is a bit small. So I can make that a little bit bigger. This is where you can start looking at the fine tuning on it and looking at where all the details are. So I've got quite a lot of little patches of dark in the face. I'm using a dark blue now, the shading on the face. And don't worry, if you've done what I've just done and pick up something that's way too dark, you can see how that looks a bit too dark. You can always knock it back again with white or a paler colour. You can see I'm starting to work the detail up on it a bit more now. On the hay at the bottom, which if you're not happy with the shape of your sheep, you can use it to hide a multitude of sins by starting to put these bits of straw in or bits of hay, bringing them up over the sheep. And as you can see, once you start putting these in, it makes the bottom of that sheep start to disappear, sitting into the hay. So the good thing about pastels is they will work light over dark like acrylics do. So you can block a dark area in and then you can start to put the light bits over the top of it.